At night, some cities don't feel like cities. They feel like movie sets after the crew left. Streetlights glow, elevators hum, and the apartments stare back, dark, silent, unsold. You've seen the photos, perfect skylines with nobody in them. China's ghost cities. And the myth is simple. They're just building ahead of demand. Future prosperity, future middle class, future everything. But reality has teeth. China didn't build future prosperity. It locked today's money inside concrete. And now the concrete is empty. This isn't a story about bad people. It's about a system that treated construction like oxygen. If you poured enough cement, the numbers looked healthy. If the cranes kept moving, everyone could breathe. Local officials, developers, banks, even families chasing safety. Because here's the dirty secret. In modern economies, buildings don't just house people. They house hopes. They become savings accounts, retirement plans, status symbols, and political scoreboards. A nation can start measuring success in square meters the way addicts measure life in shots. And China didn't just sip. It chugged. So tonight, we're walking into the concrete trap. This strange maze where growth targets meet cheap credit, where local governments fund themselves through land, and where buyers pay for homes that might arrive someday. We're going to break this down into 7 reasons the ghost city phenomenon happened, without the usual lazy punchlines. Why construction looked like prosperity on paper. Why pre-sales turned homes into financial products. Why land became a government ATM. Why unfinished towers poisoned trust. Why demographics are quietly changing the math. Why debt spread like mold through the system. And why the end game might not be a dramatic collapse, but something slower, colder, and harder to see. Here's the kicker. The scariest part of a ghost city isn't that it's empty. It's that, financially, it's full of someone's money, someone's promise, someone's future. So, who kept feeding the machine? And what happens when the machine stops being hungry? Let's start with the oldest magic trick in economics. Make something big. Measure it. Call it success. A new apartment block has weight. It has steel, glass, concrete. It looks like progress you can touch. And in GDP accounting, building things counts as investment when the work happens, not when someone happily moves in. So a city can feel richer the moment the cranes show up, even if the lights never turn on. That's the myth. If you build it, they will come. The reality, sometimes you build it, and what comes is a bill. Because construction is the perfect growth drug. It's fast. It hires armies of workers. It consumes materials like a bonfire eats oxygen. A whole supply chain wakes up: cement, rebar, appliances, furniture, even the guys selling noodles outside the job site. The economy looks busy. The charts look alive. But here's the part nobody says out loud. Busy isn't the same as productive. A treadmill can look impressive too, if you only count the steps. In a system with growth targets and political pressure, construction becomes the safest lever to pull. Factories take time. Innovation is messy. Services don't look heroic in a photo. But a skyline? A skyline is a resume you can point at. And that's how you get the concrete trap. Not a single villain twirling a mustache, just incentives lined up like dominoes. Local officials want numbers. Developers want volume. Banks want collateral. And everyone can point to the same thing and say, see, we're growing. Here's the kicker. An empty tower can still work for a while because the spending already happened. It's like buying a gym membership and calling yourself fit. Now at the psychological trap. People start believing property can only go up. So apartments stop being homes first and become financial parking spaces for savings. Not because everyone is greedy, because everyone is scared. In uncertain times, concrete feels like certainty, until it doesn't. And when demand doesn't match the supply, the illusion doesn't vanish with a bang. It leaks out slowly, like air from a giant inflatable skyline. So before we even talk about ghost cities, we have to ask, if construction can make the numbers look great today, what happens when tomorrow's buyers don't show up? And that leads us to the machine that made this whole thing explode: pre-sales. Okay, now we enter the part that feels less like housing and more like a magic show with knives. In many places, when you buy a home, you see the home. Walls, windows, something you can knock on. But in China's boom years, a huge number of apartments were sold before they were finished, sometimes before they were even really started. This is pre-sale, and the myth is, it helps developers fund construction and buyers get in early. Like ordering a pizza, pay now, it arrives hot later. Reality: the pizza shop used your money to pay off yesterday's pizza. Because pre-sales turn homebuyers into the project's bank. Families hand over savings, take on mortgages, and start paying for a future apartment, while the building is still a skeleton of rebar and dust. Now, to be fair, this can work when the system is stable, when developers finish on time, when sales are strong, when credit keeps flowing. But here's the part nobody puts in the brochure. Pre-sales only feel safe when you believe the future is guaranteed. And in a boom, the future always looks guaranteed. That's what booms are: confidence wearing sunglasses at night. So what happens when confidence slips? Developers don't just build homes. They juggle cash. New pre-sale money helps finish older projects, and buys land for the next one, and pays interest on existing debt. Not necessarily because they're evil, because the machine is designed to keep moving. Like a bicycle. Stop pedaling, you fall. Here's the kicker. Buyers can end up paying a mortgage on a home that doesn't exist yet. And if construction stalls, they're stuck in the worst genre of all time: financial horror. You can't move in. You can't easily sell. You still owe the bank. Your asset is a hole in the ground with a marketing brochure. And this is where it gets ugly. Because once enough projects slow down, pre-sales stop being fuel and become a trapdoor. Sales drop. Cash dries up. Delays spread. Trust collapses. And suddenly, the thing that made building easy makes finishing hard. So ghost cities aren't just too many homes. They're a timeline problem. Money collected today, promises due tomorrow. But if buyers were the unofficial lenders, who was getting paid first when the money got tight? And that question leads directly to the addiction that fed the whole beast: land. Now we hit the part where the ghost city story stops being about housing and starts being about government revenue. Myth: cities build because people need homes. Reality: cities also built because land itself became a cash machine. In China, local governments have major spending responsibilities, things like infrastructure and public services, but their revenue options can be constrained compared to what they re-asked to deliver. So what's the easiest way to raise money fast? Sell land use rights. Think of it like this: the city owns the stage, and developers pay for the right to perform on it. And when property prices rise, the tickets get more expensive. So local governments sell land, developers buy it, then developers borrow against future sales. The city takes the cash and funds roads, subways, parks, shiny new districts. And everyone gets addicted to the same loop. Higher prices, more land revenue, more building, higher prices. Here's the part nobody says out loud. When your city budget starts depending on land sales, you don't just prefer development. You need it. Like a household paying rent with credit cards. And this is why some places didn't just build homes. They built entire new worlds, wide boulevards, grand plazas, malls with echoes. Not because every official secretly loved empty streets, but because the financial model rewarded expansion. The kicker is how it warps incentives. If your revenue comes from selling land at high prices, you want prices high. If prices wobble, the whole machine coughs. So when demand slows, local budgets feel it fast. And that creates pressure to keep the land machine running, to keep projects approved, to keep auctions alive, to keep the illusion of endless growth standing upright. It's like a carnival. As long as the rides are spinning, nobody wants to be the guy who turns off the lights, because then everyone sees the wires. And yes, this is the part where viewers in the comments go, "Bro, that's not real growth." Correct. Congratulations. You can have a cookie. Also, if you're enjoying this slow-motion financial horror story, hit like and subscribe. Consider it your small donation to the Concrete Rehabilitation Fund. But here's the real question. If cities were funding themselves by selling land, what happens when the land stops selling? Because when that revenue collapses, the damage doesn't stay on the balance sheet. It leaks into unfinished projects, angry buyers, and a trust crisis that spreads like smoke. And that takes us to the rotten tail of the boom. Unfinished towers, and the moment people stop believing. This is where the concrete trap stops being abstract and starts showing up in family group chats. In a boom, an unfinished tower is normal. It's just in progress. Scaffolding, noise, dust, a temporary mess for a permanent dream. But when the money tightens, unfinished stops meaning not yet. It starts meaning maybe never. And that changes everything. Because housing is built on a weird kind of trust. You don't buy a home like you buy a phone. You buy years of your life. You sign contracts. You take mortgages. You tell your parents you made it. You picture furniture that doesn't exist yet. So when projects stall, when cranes freeze and rebar rusts in the rain, it isn't just an economic problem. It's emotional vandalism. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Once people see enough unfinished projects, they start treating every project as suspicious, even the healthy ones. Trust doesn't fail like a switch. It spreads like rot. And yes, there were reports of homebuyers refusing to keep paying mortgages on unfinished properties in some places, not because they wanted chaos, but because they felt trapped, paying for a ghost. This is the kicker. The system was designed to run on confidence. Pre-sales need trust. Land sales need optimism. Banks need the belief that collateral will hold its value. But one stalled project is a rumor. 10 stalled projects is a warning. 1,000 stalled projects is a new reality. And once that reality sets in, the housing market becomes something else, a psychological market, where buyers don't ask, "Can I afford it?" They ask, "Will it even exist?" Let that sink in. Because when people stop believing, demand doesn't slow politely. It falls through the floor. And then developers can't sell, can't borrow, can't finish, which creates more unfinished projects, which destroys more trust. A feedback loop with teeth. Imagine a giant domino sculpture made of glass. One piece cracks, and the whole thing doesn't just topple, it shatters, and everyone is barefoot. So if trust is the fuel, what happens when trust runs out? And that takes us to the demographic shift, because even if every project could be finished tomorrow, the next question is brutal. Who's actually going to live in all these apartments? Here's the problem with building for the future. The future has to actually show up. The myth. China has endless people, endless cities, endless demand. Reality. The math is getting less friendly. China's population has been aging, and in recent years it has reportedly started shrinking. That means fewer first-time buyers over time, and more older households already sitting on property. And housing booms don't like fewer. They like crowds. They like weddings, babies, job growth, and a steady stream of young people saying, "Okay, fine, I'll sign the mortgage." But demographics are like gravity. You can ignore them for a while, until you step off the roof. Because even if a country urbanizes, that doesn't automatically mean infinite housing demand. Some people move in with family, some rent, some delay marriage, some look at prices and decide, "Actually, I'd rather keep my organs." And here's the part nobody says out loud. A lot of housing demand during the boom wasn't just, "I need a place to live." It was, "I need a place to store money." Apartments became vaults with windows. That works when everyone believes prices rise forever. But when the population ages and growth slows, the game changes. The pool of new buyers doesn't expand fast enough to absorb everything that was built, especially in smaller cities and new districts. So you get this surreal scene. Brand new towers, glossy lobbies, marble floors, and the loudest sound is your own footsteps. Here's the kicker. An empty apartment is still an apartment. It still exists. It still needs maintenance. And it still represents debt somewhere in the system. Someone's liability dressed up as a skyline. And this is where it gets ugly. When demographics turn, the problem isn't just a bad year. It's structural. It's a slow squeeze that makes every other issue worse. Pre-sales, land revenue, developer cash flow, bank balance sheets. Think of it like a restaurant that expanded to seat 1,000 customers, right as the town's population started moving away. So even if China wanted to grow out of it, the exit is narrower now. Fewer new buyers, more inventory, less confidence. And that raises a brutal question. If the buyer base isn't growing like it used to, who ends up holding the losses? Developers, banks, local governments, or households? Because to answer that, we have to follow the money into the debt web, where the liabilities don't sit in one place, they spread. If you want to understand China's property crisis, don't picture a single collapsing building. Picture a spider web made of loans. The myth, real estate debt is just developer debt. If developers fail, they fail. Reality, property debt is sticky. It doesn't sit in one place. It spreads through banks, local governments, households, contractors, even wealth products that looked safe. Because a housing boom isn't just construction. It's a financing ecosystem. A whole food chain where every creature eats the next promise. Here's a simple version of how it worked. Developers needed land. Land cost money. Money came from borrowing. Borrowing was justified by future sales. Future sales were boosted by pre-sales. Pre-sales were boosted by confidence. And confidence was boosted by more building. It's a circle that looks beautiful, right until the moment it doesn't. And here's the part nobody says out loud. When you're in a debt boom, you stop asking, is this profitable? You start asking, can we roll it over? That phrase, roll it over, is the quiet heartbeat of every credit bubble. It means, don't pay it back. Just refinance. Extend. Pretend tomorrow will be bigger. So developers didn't just borrow from one clean, transparent place. They borrowed in layers. Bank loans, bonds, trust products, supplier credit, off-balance sheet channels. Sometimes the money path looked less like a straight line and more like a bowl of noodles. And noodles are fine until you pull one strand and the whole bowl moves. Because when sales slow, the developer's cash flow gets weak. Then contractors don't get paid. Then construction slows. Then buyers get nervous. Then pre-sales drop. Then the developer's cash flow gets weaker. And banks stare at the collateral like it's a magic trick that stopped working. Now here's the kicker. Banks hate realizing losses. Not just in China, everywhere. A bad loan is like spoiled milk. Once you admit it smells, you have to throw it out, and everyone asks why you bought it. So systems under stress often try to delay the recognition. Extend maturities. Restructure. Move the problem around. Because the goal isn't always fix it. Sometimes the goal is don't let it show up in this quarter. And this is where it gets ugly. A property downturn isn't just developers losing money. It becomes a slow-motion fight over who absorbs the loss. Developers want time. Banks want stability. Local governments want land revenue back. Households want their homes delivered. And everyone is tugging on the same rope while standing on the same ice. Let that sink in. Because a debt web means you can't cut one strand without shaking the whole structure. If developers collapse too fast, banks get hit. If banks get hit, credit tightens. If credit tightens, projects stall. If projects stall, trust dies. And once trust dies, demand doesn't come back with a motivational speech. So the story stops being, will some companies fail? It becomes, how does a system unwind without admitting how much it lost? And that sets up the final act, the end games. Do you bail it out? Let it burn slowly? Hide the losses? Squeeze savers quietly? And if you do any of that, who pays and how? Because in the concrete trap, the ending isn't a single explosion. It's often a long, quiet transfer of pain. So, what are the possible endgames here? And why do they all feel like different flavors of the same bill? Alright, final reason to. Not what happened, but how this ends. And before the comment section sets itself on fire, no, there isn't one guaranteed ending. There are endgames. Scenarios. Different ways a system tries to survive when it's carrying too much concrete on its back. Myth. A property bubble pops like a balloon. Reality. Big property systems often deflate like a dying air mattress, quietly, unevenly, at 3 a.m., while everyone pretends they're still sleeping. So what are the possible endgames? Scenario 1. The big rescue. Authorities step in hard. Support for banks. Support for developers. Support for completion. Not because it's fun, because unfinished homes are political dynamite. A half-built tower isn't just an asset problem. It's a social mood problem. But here's the kicker. Rescuing everything is expensive. It can move losses from developers to the public sector, and that's not free. That's a bill, just with different stationery. Scenario 2. The slow burn. Instead of one dramatic crash, the system chooses time. Projects get finished slowly. Bad debts get extended. Revenues stay weak. Growth stays lower. And the property market becomes a long winter where nobody wants to admit it's winter. This ending is emotionally brutal because it's boring. It's not a movie explosion. It's a chronic condition. And this is where it gets ugly. A slow burn can quietly squeeze households. If wages don't rise fast, if prices don't rebound, if opportunities shift, people pay the cost through lost wealth, fewer jobs, and weaker confidence. Scenario 3. Hide the losses. This is the sweep it under the rug approach, except the rug is a national balance sheet. Banks roll loans. Developers restructure. Assets get reclassified. Numbers look stable because we move the problem to a folder called later. It's like labeling spoiled food aged. Technically not a lie until someone eats it. Scenario 4. Financial repression, quiet transfers. This one is subtle and it's been used in different forms around the world. If the system has too much debt, one way out is to keep interest rates low, guide credit, and let time and inflation erode burdens, while savers earn less than they expected. No press conference, no villain speech, just the slow conversion of private pain into quiet acceptance. But let's zoom out. All these endgames share the same brutal theme. Someone eats the loss. The only question is, who? And how openly? Because the concrete trap is basically a game of hot potato, except the potato is an unfinished apartment and it's worth a life savings. Here's the midsection rehook you need to hear. The crisis isn't just empty buildings. It's broken promises. Promises between buyer and developer, between bank and borrower, between local government and its budget, between growth and real prosperity. And if promises break, the system doesn't just lose money. It loses legitimacy. So when you look at a ghost city, don't just ask, why did they build this? Ask, what kept everyone believing it made sense? Because belief is the real foundation here. Concrete is just what they poured on top of it. And now the comment bait question, the one that reveals the moral guts of the whole story. If you were a family who paid for an apartment that never arrives, who should eat the loss? The buyer, the bank, the developer, or the state? And whatever answer you pick, that answer tells you what kind of society you think you're living in. So, if the endgames are all painful and the losses can't vanish, what's the real lesson of the concrete trap? And what does it warn the rest of the world about? That's where we land in the conclusion. So here we are, standing in the shadow of a skyline that might never fill. The myth was that China's endless construction meant endless prosperity. The reality is colder. A system rewarded building first and asking questions later. Growth targets, land revenue, easy credit, pre-sales, confidence. Each one made sense alone. Together, they built a concrete trap. And the tragedy isn't empty buildings. It's what those buildings represent. A family's savings locked inside a promise. A city budget tied to land auctions. A bank balance sheet leaning on collateral that only works if belief stays alive. Because that's the real fuel in this story, belief. Once belief cracks, the economy doesn't just lose momentum. It loses trust. And trust is the only thing you can't print, pour, or refinance. So what's the moral? If your economy starts depending on one asset, one lever, one loop, you can get rich looking without getting resilient. You can get taller without getting stronger. You can mistake activity for value and concrete for prosperity. And that warning isn't about China. It's about any country where housing becomes the main engine of growth, where homes turn into investment products, where governments lean on property revenue, where buyers feel forced to gamble just to stand still. Next, we look at the West's version of the same disease, where the housing economy is quietly eating the middle class. And if you want more documentaries like this, sharp, cinematic, and slightly allergic to polite lies, subscribe. It helps this channel keep the lights on. Now, before we end, let's do the credibility thing.